Howdy guys, here for another devlog. This is take two. First take, mic was not working. Shocker. So let's kind of get into it. It's been a little bit since the last one. Last time I said I was going to work on the towns, trying to finish it, get the game closer to being an actual game. And while I have been doing that, I haven't touched the towns at all. I realized that what I needed to do is really work on getting other parts of the game finished so I can finish a town. It kind of sounds goofy, but part of the town I want to be able to have quests, and those quests largely are going to be to go to other maps, and so it doesn't really make sense to put in quests when I don't have other maps. So we'll go ahead and start loading the game here. But so I spent a lot of time on train generation, spent a lot of time on the loading the map, loading the chunks. I spent time limiting the refresh rate of the game. That way you can have FPS higher than 60 before it's clamped at 60. See here, added some new biomes. Um, or added some fog, as you can see. Or at least the fog is coming up. I should probably change the fog distance based on the length of the loaded terrain so you don't see the water, but um, the first iteration of fog, I suppose. But you can see that chunks are loading in fairly quick. I am on the YYC compiler, the C++ whatever compiler, which does improve the speed of the game significantly. But I went through, and on chunks before it would just load a chunk a frame, and that's why initially I had the FPS clamped at 60, because the amount of time it takes to load a chunk often is too high to allow for a higher FPS without causing like a spike. Because some of these chunks, like nothing here really is too crazy. I'd say like of all the things, probably this rock or maybe one of the trees is like the most advanced. The vast majority of the stuff is just, two triangle, two triangle, two triangle, but it adds up for sure. And so to load all that in one frame, even at 60 FPS on a lower end machine, could definitely lead to a lag spike. So what I went in and did is, while loading a chunk, it will keep track on the amount of time that has passed, and then if the amount of time hits that threshold, it will just save where it's at and then keep going. And the rest of the step will run, and then the next step will come back, pick up where it left off until it finishes. Um, and that has the added bonus where if if a chunk hasn't hardly taken any time at all, it'll just finish it, and then it'll just keep going. And it's pretty handy. That's why if you run, let's see if I can do this real quick. See, when I run, you can see it like zoom past this like middle area where it's just grass and leaves. It's super simple, but it's a little slower on the trees and stuff. It's still pretty quick, but there is a noticeable difference. Another thing that I've been working on is adding more batched models um, with this new system that I implemented. I think I talked about that in the last video. We could have like more intricate batched models. Like this is fully batched with the chunk. So this chunk is like 32 by 32. I have no idea where it starts and ends, but it's part of it, and I can break it. Pretty neat. And having it batch really improves performance. I mean, you can see how much we have loaded here, and you know, it's I have 5 to 600 FPS, which is pretty cool. So yeah, the terrain generation's been a big one. We got mountains, chunk loading. It's been a pretty big one that I've been working on. Unclamping the speed. So now I have 165 FPS because that's the refresh rate of my monitor. But if you wanted to, shoot for 240, or if you just want to keep it at 60, that's also perfectly fine. I added a map to the game. It's not finished. obviously, you can see I've been working on the generation. So this top left corner here is what I'm currently doing, and then this rest of it is just kind of the old um, bit here. So this is all the new, then everything else is old. And it takes a long time to generate terrain, so I start it generating just like the corner, so I get enough where I can kind of see what things would look like, and then if it's what I'm wanting, then I'll just do the whole thing. But so we got the terrain, we got the map, it's pretty cool. I can teleport around uh, to the map, look at things. Having that, I put in a new spiral, or I guess a ring chunk loading, so it loads where you're at first versus um, where I was. That over there is the old area. I can teleport to that. The old area. But so yeah, that's been what I'm working on. The next thing I'm gonna work on is redoing how the map saves. So right now the map is one ginormous buffer that is about half a gigabyte. That poses a lot of issues. For one, that's half a gig of RAM just eaten up by that, which half a gig isn't by today's standards not that bad, but it could definitely be significantly lower, and also poses a huge issue with networking. Every player is gonna have like the same maps when they download the game. All the maps are gonna be in it. They already have them all, but what you still have in the map is going to change, right? Like if you join your buddy and he's been farming all day, obviously all the stuff that he's planted, all that's going to be there, and that's not going to be on his side, so I have to send all that over. And so the best way to do that is just to send him the chunks. And so right now it's not compressed, and so that poses a huge like bandwidth issue, because to send half a gig over to get the players caught up is kind of crazy. And so, and to compress that takes about 10 seconds. I've measured it, and that's on my machine. So chances are for other people it might take longer. Um, so the goal is to change it to kind of what Minecraft does, which is they have their world already saved in chunks on like in files, and then they like group them into regions. I don't know if I'll group them in the regions just because my maps aren't infinite. Um, Kind of seems like might not be necessary, but um, I do want to save it in as smaller chunks, so then the player can just load the chunks that they need as they need them, and they'll all be already compressed. And then since they're all compressed, it'll be super small. They'll load incredibly fast, and then they'll uncompress them as they need them, but they will keep the compressed in memory, and then when other players join the world, they can just send them the compressed chunks. If they, let's say you're farming in a chunk, you're changing stuff, you're planting whatever, and then the player joins, they will have to recompress that chunk, send it to them, because it's not the compressed chunk doesn't change, only the uncompressed does. Um, but the chunk will be small enough that they can compress during runtime, and it shouldn't cause a lag spike. And so that opens up the possibility of networking, which is huge. It lowers the RAM usage by a significant amount, I think, by at least like 8 times. Like at the very least 8 times less, if not more, um, on the RAM usage. And then same thing with disk space usage, which is awesome. Um, and all of that just opens up the possibility for larger maps, because I think right now, so this is right now, this entire area is 8,000 by 8,000, which is half a gig. If we switch to this other method, easily can do something 10 times the size of this, which is awesome. And then also have plans to kind of lower the amount of bytes saved per chunk. So right now, 8 bytes of data is used for one chunk. So there's one chunk, there's one, little square, 8 bytes. Very unnecessary. I want to lower that to 5. The plan is 5. Um, by doing that, the biggest save will be right now the base height of this, so the height in the world this is saved, and then also the current height is saved on the same map file. And that has a benefit of being super organized, super uh, like fast read and loading, and saving times. Like it is fast, but in terms of data usage, it is hugely like misused. Like you can see that what I mean by the base and then the current height. So the current height of this is higher than the base height. And I can't just change the base height, unfortunately, because if I change it and then I save it, and then if I was to reload it, then it would reload it and then add even more to it. Because when it reads what building here is, so it's another thing, buildings, which is just anything that's on top of it, pretty much. So these leaves, the grass, the flowers, the rocks, the trees, those are all classified as buildings. Um, it adds to the base height, and so it knows like, okay, well, we have this height here, and then we have a height of, I don't know, 4. So we know that like we can't stand on top of, we can't walk through the rock pretty much, but we can walk through the grass because it doesn't have any height to it. But so removing the height from the map save and just having that saved as a buffer during runtime will be huge. And then I also want to lower the amount of ground. So the ground right now is 2 bytes. I want to lower that to 1. I don't think I'll need more than 255 different ground textures, I should say. So right now I think I'm at like 20 something, which I'd be surprised. Like I don't really plan on just going crazy in that regard with ground. The buildings is right now I'm already up to almost 100, and that's a 16-bit 2 byte integer. Definitely going to keep it that way. It would not surprise me in the slightest if I end up using more than 255 different buildings, because that encapsulates, foliage, trees, rocks, or anything that's batched onto a chunk. So, yeah, I think there's a good chance I'll be more than 255 on that. But when it comes to ground, no, I'd be surprised. So we'll lower that. So that'll bring us to 5, which will further decrease the compression time, decrease the RAM usage, the sending of receiving of these chunks, and just you know speed things up, make things more efficient. So that is the plan. I've done some work with this darn shadow map, and it's definitely improved. But you can see already we got some pretty rough artifacting there. But it's always just a 1 step forward, 2 step back kind of situation. Definitely an improvement over last time, but it is just, I just don't know, there's a perfect ratio somewhere of resolution to the size of the world that it's looking at, you know, to this, that, and in between, and I haven't found it yet. I want there to be like a large area that you can see with the shadow, but at the same time, I don't want you to have to use half a gig of VRAM to just do that, which is kind of like that's a lot. Some people only have 2 gigs, or some people don't even have a gig of VRAM. They're using a laptop and they don't have it, and I don't want people to have it. So, um, but we'll see. We'll see what ends up happening there. But yeah, so that's where we're at. Thank you for watching.